Hi there, Radha. I would love to welcome you to the Inner Goddess Summit today.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here. Hello, everyone. So happy to be with you.
Thank you, Radha. We are so happy to have you with us. It's such a special treat to have you here on this summit and to get to talk to you about some really, really juicy goddessy things.
Yes, I'm coming to you from a jungle in Costa Rica at the moment, just in case you're wondering.
Right? So if we see bugs or we see whatever,
Yeah,
don't
if
be
you
surprised.
see any, things flying around, just it's part of the organic life here.
Jungle is the jungle. So you're the jungle goddess today with your flower in your hair, everything. I love it. Fantastic. So, Radha, speaking of you and jungles, let's get right to a story I really, really want to hear about and want to share with our audience. Let's talk about your childhood.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. So, I was born in the US, but my mother is Filipina. So, when I was about 3 years old, my mother took me to the Cordillera Mountains to live with the natives, the Igorots, for over a year. And yeah, that was an incredible experience.
It must have been amazing. I mean, who gets to say that they lived in the mountains of anywhere with, an indigenous group of people? That's pretty special.
It was really amazing in the sense that it activated sort of these like Gaia codes within me, being in the mountains and being with the natives. And the Igorots are warrior people. They're sovereign, they have sovereign hearts, and they really imprinted within me the sovereign heart warrior, because the way that they live their life, they have been able to sustain their indigenous ways through all the conquistadors that came through the Philippines, which we know are many, many, Spanish and the Japanese, and they are a matriarchal group. And so the feminine were the ones who basically told the masculine, in order to keep our mountains safe, you know, we suggest that you cut off the heads of the enemy and just put it on your belt and let them see it. And that in itself scared everyone away. And nobody wanted to go there.
Wow, that's incredible. And so this came from the women of the
Yeah,
group.
from the women. They're very gentle. They're not fierce when they don't need to be. In fact, they welcomed my mother, myself, and my brother with open arms, and they gave my mother so many gifts of jewelry and things they had made, and they just did it because they're full of so much love. But they can sense if your heart is pure, meaning like if you have the intention to be with them and or be with a mountain or to be with nature, or if your intent is to cause harm to the mountain and to them, then they are very protective.
That's um that's really interesting because I think if we look at history and even if we look at just, our lives around us, even modern day, I mean, we have this concept that the female is the weaker sex and the male is the stronger, more dominant sex. But here we have the story of, in times of danger when livelihood was threatened and the very earth that they lived on was threatened by invaders who had bad intentions for them. It was the women who became the really fierce ones and guided that action.
Yes.
I think if you think about it, I mean, what mother doesn't become just that fierce in the
Yeah.
face of needing to defend her children and or her home,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I think it's that that motherly primordial instinct is to safe haven your family, and they are really land keepers of those mountains. That's literally their job. They're very connected to spirit, so they have this unique connection that I think may be hard for others to understand, but they pretty much talk to nature. They communicate even without so many words, because they're not overactive with their speaking. And I even remember as a little girl being with them and just feeling so much love and admiration, and feeling almost like a telepathic communication. Just like they would smile and nod, or, their gestures were so subtle, but very clean in their communication. So it was very easy to relate to, but we have to come to more of a subtle place. Whereas I think throughout the ages, everything's become faster and more in some ways like dense, right? Because we've become a little bit more inundated with so much information and technology, and therefore the way that we think is shifted quite a bit. And I notice, like, when I'm here, I try to stay off the computer. I mean, I'm still working and such, but if I'm not, I try to pull back and not just be on social media as much, because I'm trying to just be back in that awareness with nature, to listen to the sounds. I'm telling you, I even hear the mountains like make sounds, and it's almost like when you start to tune in, you become acclimated to the understanding that how everything is alive. And this is our pure state of being. We don't need, I was just thinking about that, like we really don't need to connect to anything AI in our body, because that takes us away from the organic. And even being on the computer and the phone so much, that starts to do that as well. Sure. So unplugging and then plugging back into the true source, it kind of it puts you on that subtle vibration again, which is our natural blueprint.
Well, I would think that, I mean, we have senses, 5 of them for a reason, and sure, part of it's for pleasure, but I would think that, well, no, I don't think that. I know that a part of the reason we have our senses is for our own safety and survival. I mean, if you can't smell the tiger, you're going to eat dinner. So you saying that you can hear the mountains making sounds, and I would think, I mean, I know in Costa Rica there's volcanic activity, so I would think that it would behoove us all to be able to stay connected with our senses and with the earth in that way, and be able to hear, see, smell, feel, whatever, all of the senses involved in what the earth is doing. Because just like that, I mean, if you are in a place that has something like volcanic activity, well, if you can hear it or sense it, feel it before it happens, and you have time to go somewhere. And
it's so true. And taking cues from the animals too, because the animals will let you know what's going on. Like, they'll let you know if everything is okay. They'll be buzzing around when they're all flying away. You got to flee too. It's the same thing. I was noticing last night there were so many frogs here, and I was saying, well, that's it. That's how you know that the land is really in good shape. If there's frogs on the ground, the land is very healthy. And a lot of our thinking that I think we need to be reminded, because like when we use stuff like Roundup Ready, right, for the lawns to keep them green or whatever, you're killing all these other kinds of animal life, and that the whole ecosystem that goes into the earth, that goes into the water, we're drinking it, it's all everything is connected. That's the whole point. We're not separate from any of this. So whatever we do to Mother Earth, we're also ingesting it. That's a manifestation outward and also within.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for bringing up that point, because that's a very important thing for all of us to be aware of. And I would imagine, obviously having spent some time with an indigenous group of people, that probably got very imprinted on you from an early age.
Yeah, I felt this deeper connection, and it reminded me that how important it is that everything that we're doing is affecting everything. But of course, like that was a very important imprint in my life, being up there in the mountains. Like we were right on top of the Cordillera, so on top, almost as if we could touch the sky, with the clouds, and we had hot springs and a river running through. We stayed in these bamboo huts, and then we would all come together as one, soul family, and we just shared meals. Somebody would cook and then put them on these banana plates, and we would eat them, use our hands, and it wasn't quote unquote civilized, but I can't remember a time that I felt like more joy and laughter. And I think that was probably one of the greatest times in my entire life. And, that kind of connection, you don't have all the mental stuff going with the judgment. It's just being present. And now as an adult, I'm like, okay, how can we get back to this? Like, what are the ways? And the goddess, working with the goddess has really helped me and helped other women to come back to our true blueprint, which is, connected to nature, because goddess is nature. Mother Gaia is the ultimate goddess. Mother Gaia is it.
Exactly. Without Mother Gaia, we're all sort of without a spaceship.
Yeah, where are we going to be? She's ultimate.
So let me ask you, this is going to be kind of a multi-layered question, I think. But I'd love to know, to you, when I say the words inner goddess, first of all, what does that mean? And what did you learn at that very, very early stage in your life, very formative years? What did you learn from the Igorots about how to connect to that inner goddess?
Yeah. So when I think of inner goddess, it comes back to that place when I was a little girl on that mountain. It's just that essence of peace and connect, but also peace within, but also peace with the environment. So, it's very childlike too, because laughter and joy and peace, it's this subtle energy that we really have to wind down to get to, because it's within all of us. Every one of us has that. We just have to find ways to get there. And what I learned from the Igorots is really to value the subtle, to value everything, to look at a plant and say hello, like really value everything. I know it sounds silly, but when I walk through these beautiful lush jungle and I see an amazing flower, I say hello, flower. Like, just being in awareness with our environment, and also noticing that we're taking in that information as well. So it's a symbiotic relationship, and it's beautiful. So what we're focusing on when we focus on the beauty and the grace of what we've been given, it starts to grow more when we care for it, when we tend to it. Here in the jungle, you don't have to do much. The rain is doing it all. The soil is so beautiful. It's like red, and it's so full of life. And I think what we're missing is coming back to that life force, that who we truly are is that life force. We are that life force. And so the goddess is this life force that kind of goes between realms, right? So we're physical, mental, emotional, but kind of going between the veils too, where we can access other parts of ourselves, other information. It's very multidimensional. It's the god, working with the goddess energy is very activating, and it's expansive, but it also it keeps you very contained. So it's interesting, the expansion and being contained. And I've done I've done probably over 1,000 goddess activation sessions, over the decade. And each one is very unique because you know, we journey together. We journey together with a goddess, and a different goddess shows up, different archetypes will show up because each goddess represents a various archetype. And that can be something that we can utilize in our life. Like, sometimes you might need zinc in your diet. You might be deficient in zinc, and that zinc can put you back into balance, or another vitamin. I kind of see the spectrum of the goddesses in that way too. Like, a certain archetype of the goddess can bring some essence into us that already exists. It just needs to activate within us because everything is already inside. We are the full spectrum, but many times we have to go in and activate those aspects in order to get the full benefit.
Yeah, there's just so many I don't know, there's so many layers and facets to us, and to the goddess as well. The goddess aspect of us. There's just so much to explore.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward
Hey.
to now. You've moved away from the Igorots, and you're older now, and now you're living in California, correct?
I travel a lot. So I go between, I'm from California and I had my home base there, but I transitioned to North Carolina
Mm-hmm.
in the Appalachian Mountains. But I still go back to California because I have a client base there as well. So,
So when you left, like, you spent some time living in California. I think
yeah.
you went to school there. You went to university and all of that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did. And I worked in Hollywood. I worked behind the scenes. Well, I worked as a model when I first got there, and then I was taking a producer's course at UCLA. And then I got into the studios, and I was doing a lot of the behind the scenes work, production, and PR, and doing a lot of the heavy lifting actually for these films, which was incredible in many ways because I love storytelling and I love community, and it was quite exciting. But also, I was very much in my masculine when I was doing that because I was amongst mostly men, right, in this field, and very like, I got to get this done and this done, and this is, everything was. I at that time, I think I was like finding, scouting the writers and the actors, like doing a lot of the things to bring it all to pull it together for pre-production, and finding the locations and like running around and doing a lot. And so I was in masculine mode trying to keep up with this. And I mean, I was probably in severe burnout because it was a pretty stressful situation for multiple reasons. Also, that was, they're still uncovering a lot in Hollywood about, how to treat the feminine and, those kinds of things. And so, I was sort of trying to deal with all of that. And I was like, oh, this is really rough. And it really burned me out. And then I pulled back and I turned to energy healing. I just mostly it was to start out to help me because I felt sort of like traumatized by the industry. It was rough. It was cruel, very cruel. There was no mercy in it. Like, there's no feminine energy in it. It's purely patriarchal. And it's like, it's like dog eat dog. And I don't really feel comfortable. Like I was adequate for the work. I brought stuff to film festivals. I did everything, and I helped films, and people be successful. But I was like, wait a minute, this is gonna, if I continue, I might just die. So I just turned to energy healing, and then I got trained in like a dozen modalities. Once I just started to learn about it, I completely went into it. And then I started to ask my mom about our lineage, and then she had told me that, our ancestors were shamans. And I had a ancestor that had come to me a few ancestors that came to me, but one was a shaman named Don Pedro that was on my mom's lineage, came to me through, he just, when I started to open up to that realm, he came to me energetically. And I was like, who are you? And then I told my mom, and she was like, well, that's your ancestor, that's part of your lineage. And so a whole journey opened up. When I started to go into the energy healing. And then I was having a practice in Hollywood Hills. And instead of going to the lots to do the producing, I was being invited to work with celebrities and stuff. And so I would get a pass and go in and work with them. And I was like, I kind of like this end of it better.
Kind of call your own shots, right?
Yeah, exactly. But also it's wonderful. And I've always been that person that my friends would come to if they needed advice or I just love to help people. I want everyone to feel good. And I really want healing for this whole world. And it happens one by one. When we start to heal ourselves, we're healing our whole lineage, 7 generations. So when we clear one trauma that's really big within us, that could go all the way back and all the way forward. And so we just don't know how much we're doing for our family, or they don't know how much we're doing.
Yeah, right. And whether we're doing it in one way or the other, whether we're doing it in the way that helps, or we're doing it in the way that continues a less than helpful pattern, we'll say.
Yeah, the distortion.
And I'm thinking, as I hear you talking about, working in Hollywood and with the film industry, because I worked with the film industry too in North Carolina, but I was on set all the time. It wasn't nearly what you're talking about, but even still, I know what you're talking about, that it is so intense and it's so fast paced and it's so, so dog eat dog and so, so sort of cold and uncaring sometimes. And I say that with all love, because I loved the time that I spent there. And I had so many, I was treated actually very, very well, but I saw how difficult and how harsh the industry can be. And so I'm wondering, for you, having come from having this background with Igarets and just living in harmony with the earth and sitting on the ground and eating with your hands off of a banana leaf and having that in your foundation from your childhood, and then coming to this very harsh and tiring and difficult to remain in your feminine energy. Were there times when you were able to draw on that childhood experience and that childhood learning? And if so, like, what did you find there that helped you in that fast-paced modern world to reconnect to your inner goddess?
Yeah, that was such an interesting time. I guess it felt like an initiation, in a sense, of seeing what's distorted. I went into the distortion, to the underworld, and really, so eventually I had to learn. I mean, it was Kali that activated within me, because I had to say no and learn to be fierce and stand up, because it was that doggy dog world. There's no boundaries with anybody. People who are in power think they own everyone. I mean, that's a mentality of the ownership, and to stand up for myself. And it was very challenging, because the whole mentality was that way. Mm-hmm. So everybody underneath that it was kind of like everyone is indoctrinated into that. And even though many people would say, well, this is wrong, no one would say anything, because they knew, well, it's just as simple as this. If you don't go along, you're done. And if you make a fuss, you're blacklisted. It's as simple as that. But for me, I had to learn to stand up, and part of saying no was departing, because that was no longer in alignment. And so it was very challenging to find the sacredness in that, although I understand it was a sacred initiation in itself. But what it did do is plummet me to like a very dark place. And in that dark place, I almost really felt like giving up. I was like, I'm done. Like, this is it. You know, it's that feeling. It's that darkness. It was a very dark place, and everyone has that same mentality. So nobody is outside of that. And it was actually the goddess that came to me in my darkest moment. It was Lakshmi, and I was in this like Asian spa and in the these beautiful baths, and it was a woman's spa, and I was just in this prayer, like I just surrender. And there was a Buddha right in front of me, and I was just staring at the Buddha, and there was a little like a light streaming in, and I was just staring maybe for hours just in prayer. And then all of a sudden I see some light to the left, and so I look, and I'm not kidding you, and I'm not making this up, but it was Lakshmi. It was the light of Lakshmi. It wasn't like the perfect curvation of her in every sense, but I just got, I was like, wow, this is like a divine being. And then I got immediately, this is Lakshmi. And literally she spoke to me deep within my being. And she said, don't give up. Don't give up. There's light right around the corner. It's going to get brighter. And she literally infused me with this essence and energy, this golden light. And I can tell you, it really, that was a huge pivotal changing point for me, where I said, yeah, I'm going to I'm following the light. Wherever it leads me, I'm going. And I'm like, I'm with you, Lakshmi. I'm here with you. And it was such a profound moment that, you know, I think all of us have been at rock bottom at some point.
Sure.
And in that place, it's a very vulnerable place. You know, you can go really dark. And so that her light, the emanation came through, and that really activated some remembrance within me, the golden light, you know, Cordillera Mountains, the mission, it just activated something within me. And I didn't realize, but I had a huge Lakshmi statue in my apartment. And so, and I have that statue in North Carolina. But so the goddess has guided me in the darkest moments and helped me to remember there's more than that. That's all an illusion. That was an illusion. That was an experience. We're here to grow and learn from them. And sometimes we have to walk on those dark sides so that when we come to the light, we can understand the bridge. You know, there's something about integration that's very important, that at times we polarize very much in spirituality, like that's bad and this is good. But sometimes people they are walking on those sides, like in Hollywood, right? They're walking in the dark. That's what I consider the dark side, you know? And then you have to walk through the dark so you can understand the value of the light. And we don't really honor that. And so the goddess is multifaceted. She has many faces, many forms, and many archetypes. And the dark goddesses are just as important as the light goddesses. And so that's something we have to remember, that we're fully a full spectrum human being. We're not just one, like just this one thing. There's many layers and many dimensions to us that come through. Sometimes it's a fierceness that we need to get through the jungle. And sometimes it's a soft surrender that carries us through. So each situation calls for different goddess archetypes. In that moment, it was the golden goddess Lakshmi that really pulled me through. And then after that, I opened my practice. It was called Golden Goddess Healing. And that was in Hollywood Hills. And I rented a house with my mother. And we had a beautiful healing practice but of course I had been going to different kinds of schools, and studying, and got certified in, so many modalities, and just because I love it. But it was a way of taking a really dark situation and learning. And I understood so much. Then I started to work with actors. I started to work with producers and directors. And I was like, I understand. I really understand. I'm not sitting on the other side, not knowing what you're going through, because I do. And so I think that, I think that light workers, or whatever you want to call it, star seeds, people on the path of the goddess, we go through so many initiations, and they're not to be judged. They're not for us to judge. They're not for others to judge. They're part of us becoming whole, and so, how much more compassion do we have in our heart because of that? We understand. And I feel very blessed to have been able to work with people in the industry after being in the industry, and to understand the dynamics there. And, so it's a beautiful full circle process that came through with that.
It is, really.
Yeah.
Is. Thank you for sharing that. And so I would like to know, what would be, for women who are, or anybody really, who are really struggling to return back to that inner goddess feeling, or that connection with their divine self, what would be like the top 2 tips you would give them?
Number 1 would be sincerity, because it's a sincerity in our heart. And that is the most important thing. If you really want to have that experience, sincerity is the most important thing. Like, if I go into the jungle today and I have a sincere heart, I might connect with this aspect of the goddess, right, that I hadn't before. Or calling in, like at that moment when I was really down, I was like so down. I was like, I surrender everything. Like, I surrender, like, just, guide me, show me. And the goddess came, like, it's like, I know it sounds complicated, but it's that simple to me, surrender. And so how could we do that? I can create a little altar in the forest. I can bring a flower to the forest. I can put together a few stones. I can say a prayer. I can just say, thank you, goddess, thank you. I could put my hands on the ground. There's no quote unquote formula, because it's just being present with what already is.
Right.
And sometimes we need to get our slate wiped so clean and get, that's why those rock bottoms are so important. They're not, it's not to be like, oh, it's horrible. It is horrible at the moment, but I promise, whenever we have a rock bottom, or if anyone's going through a rough time, maximize it. Like, say, okay, I surrender, show me. And I always say, show me, creator, show me, goddess, what it is that I need to see that my small human mind can't see, and to me, devotion is very important. Just devotion, pure devotion in the heart. I know that I love this world. I know that I love animals. I know I love plants. I know I love other humans. And I know that I love the goddess. And it's that simple when you come back to that. Another thing is trying to find set up sacred moments for yourself. So I'm here in this jungle, villa. They're like these little glass houses, but the first night I stayed in a jungle villa, and then last night I was like, well, you know what? I think I'd like to have an outdoor bath experience with flowers and the jungle. And so I set it up, right? A juicy experience for myself that I could activate myself into, I guess, another initiation, and those kinds of things are very rewarding regardless. It's like, so part of it is just surrender. And then part of it is creating that sacred space of devotion. So
I completely agree with that more, setting up moments, and it, the tiniest moments, because, you know a little bit of my background right now, and I have like such limited time.
Yes.
But something I do, and it's the simplest thing, is I put rose water in a bottle of water and I put it in the refrigerator. And then I have this stemmed glass. It's my
Ooh.
special stemmed glass. I just like stemmed glasses for whatever reason. They just make me feel special when I drink from them. And so I'll take my rose water in the morning and I'll pour some of that in my stemmed glass. And I have it sitting on the cabinet, just waiting for me for whenever I'm feeling like just completely frazzled or whatever. Even sometimes I see it and boom, I snap right back in that
Yes.
connection because it's that symbol for me.
Hmm.
And if I'm thirsty, I go and I take a drink and I just feel that and taste that energy from the roses. And it's just so powerful and it's so simple and it's so quick. So maybe it's taking a bath in the jungle and maybe it's just a glass of rose water in a stem glass, whatever it is. We can all find something that we do that
Yes.
just brings us right back. So thank you for sharing that, Radha.
I love that. I love that. Roses are the highest frequency. It expands our
All the
frequency.
flowers, yeah, of all the flowers.
Yeah, that is the goddess flower. So that is another way you could just get rose oil and also just a smell of rose.
Mhm.
That really activates me into feeling that goddess energy, to getting into that. It's also like that mindset where your mind is more open. There's a lizard just came jumping off the. Okay, hello. I love that.
Scooter.
Well, they have these lizards that are about this big.
Oh,
And I
wow.
don't know how it got up here, but it came up to this little thing and then I just jumped off.
Well, we thank it for bringing its energy. I'm sure it had a message with it. We'll have to go and look that up.
So funny. I'm always surprised here because I'm almost like, and then I relax. Okay, cool. But it always startles me. Like when the bat came into the room last night, I mean, I was like, oh, and then I was like, okay, this is sacred. Like,
I do
okay.
love that about Costa Rica. You never know what's going to show up. It's a monkey, it's a bat, it's a huge lizard.
Yeah.
Who knows? So,
So funny though, but they really like to be near us too.
yeah.
So I don't say shoo, get away. Like I just open the doors fully and let the bat, let the bat took like a few hours to figure out how to get out.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna like it definitely activated my adrenaline and I'm going through initiation of facing another, experience. It's beautiful.
That's great. I love it. So, Radha, if our viewers would like to find you, how do they do that?
Yes, so please visit me at my website, which is actually up now, I think, radhanilia.net. And I'd love to say hello to you and connect with you in any way. I also do collaborative book series. And in alignment to what you're doing, we're doing a book series called Stories of the Goddess. And it's a full book, of different women's or men's stories of their relationship with the goddess, personal to each person. So if you're interested in being part of that, do reach out.
Well, I will just share very quickly, just to let our viewers know how connected you are to the goddess energy. When I was looking for people to speak, I mean, obviously I knew some people that I would reach out to, but I was just curious to see who I could find. And one night I just thought, just Google search goddess expert. And I thought, that is the dumbest thing. Why are you what's that gonna bring up, right? But something just said, no, just do it. So I sat down and I Google searched goddess expert and you came up.
Oh my gosh, I'm so honored. Thank you. I thank you for finding me, but we're all divinely finding each other. And that's what I love right now, this specific time, as many challenges as there are, because there certainly are, we're finding each other. Our tribes, our soul tribes, we're finding each other. And it's like this happy, joyful reunion. And I'm so honored to spend this time with you and all of you who are joining. So much love to all of you. Thank you.
Well, so much love to you too, Radha. And thank you so much to everyone for being here and for listening and for sharing what Radha wanted to share with us. And thank you, Radha, from the bottom of my heart for being with us and for just giving us such beautiful wisdom and guidance from the Igorots and from your own life experiences. Thank you so very much. Enjoy your rest of your jungle experience.
Yeah. Bye for now.
Take care. Bye bye.